Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode Intermission, perhaps even better known simply as the Yuffie DLC episode, has been fairly controversial for a number of reasons, chief among them probably being the fact that it's exclusive to the PlayStation 5, leaving many players that haven't been able to get their hands on the device in the dust. A lot of dedicated fans even feeling betrayed, since they are unable to play it on the same console they played the original Final Fantasy VII Remake. And now that I've had to qualify Final Fantasy VII Remake by saying the original Final Fantasy VII Remake, I feel like we've stepped into some sort of alternate dimension, which might be fitting considering where the story is heading. But it is also necessary because the Yuffie episode wasn't created as DLC for the original remake, but rather the new and flashy Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Intergrade actually being something that couldn't exist without the PlayStation 5, since it relies on the superior hardware of that console. But is Episode Intermission also something that could only exist on the PlayStation 5? Is it a good addition to the game and the unfolding story of Final Fantasy VII Remake? And is Fort Condor the best minigame ever created? Hello everyone, I'm Nökkvi from Birds of Play, and welcome to a review of Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode Intermission. If you're in the market, or should I say wall market, for more Final Fantasy in your life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy content. But without further ado, let's start with this intermission, and let's start talking about Episode Intermission. The events of Episode Intermission overlap those of Final Fantasy VII Remake as Yuffie undertakes her mission. Oh my god, I see what they did there. It's like an intermission between Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 and 2, but it's also because Yuffie is on a mission. My mind is blown. But anyway, Yuffie's mission brings her to Midgar at the same time Cloud and the others have been blowing up reactors. In Midgar, Yuffie teams up with Sonon Kusakabe, a fellow ninja from Wutai, and together they infiltrate the Shinra building, and along the way we get to see some new and some familiar faces. As stories go, it's nothing too groundbreaking, but it does serve as a good introduction to Yuffie that expands on her character quite a bit, which is a fairly welcome addition since her introduction in the original game wasn't all that substantial. There isn't however all that much of it since the DLC is fairly short, only taking around 4 to 6 hours to complete, depending on how much of a hurry you're in and what level of difficulty you're playing on. We here at the Birds of Play played it on normal and regularly got our asses handed to us, which added to the runtime quite a bit. But as the DLC is set up as only 2 chapters, I feel like it really delivers on that promise at least, supplying us with 2 additional chapters that feel as full as chapters from the original Final Fantasy VII Remake itself. The game looks and plays great, and Yuffie is a great addition to the roster of playable characters. One of the biggest improvements Yuffie brings to the table is the ability to make swift work of airborne enemies, which is something I wouldn't mind seeing her teaching to Cloud one day to improve the aerial combat in the remake. Sonon is also a very welcome addition to the team, even if you can't control him directly. Synergizing with Sonon in order to perform combination attacks was truly one of the highlights of the battle system, even though the game didn't explain it very well. There are quite a few things that the game doesn't really take the time to explain properly, I feel, aside from a few text boxes, but by the time you reach the end, you will probably feel like you've gotten the hang of it by trial and error. One interesting gameplay mechanic is that every time Yuffie dies in battle, Sonon sacrifices himself to bring her back, which says a lot about their relationship and what kind of person Sonon is. However, when you're playing on normal mode and you suck, then you might start to feel like maybe there is such a thing as too much ritual suicide. The music in the game is great, even as it moves away from the familiar Final Fantasy VII tracks in favor of something new. The classic Yuffie's theme even takes on a new life and really ties the whole experience together, and I'm hoping the new version will make it into future installments of the remake series as well, just like I hope future installments will continue to build on Yuffie's character, as he has now been introduced in the DLC. Before that happens though, the DLC actually risks ending up as filler material in the sense that it doesn't really affect anything outside itself all that much. But whether it will ultimately remain filler depends on whether they grab the ball and actually run with it in the future, and I think they will. Not only because it makes the most sense, but also because there are some hints to that effect in the DLC itself. Not that I'm going to spoil them here, that would be the topic of a future video I guess. But speaking of the future, it is clear that the future of the remake will not be on the PlayStation 4, which perhaps shouldn't come as a surprise, but maybe it's understandable that a lot of players feel like not having the DLC for the first part available on the PlayStation 4 might be pulling the band-aid off a little bit too early, especially considering how hard it is to get your hands on a PlayStation 5 these days. What's worse is that after having played Intermission, it doesn't really feel like there is anything in it that couldn't have been replicated on the older piece of hardware. Sure, the game looks better on the PlayStation 5 than it ever could have on the PlayStation 4, and the rumble in the new DualShock controller feels a lot more immersive, even though it's not the most revolutionary use of the feature I've seen. We did experience the very occasional texture pop, but I hesitate to even bring it up since it was so minor. All that being said, there doesn't seem to be anything in the game that truly justifies it being a PlayStation 5 exclusive, which isn't only concerning in the sense that a lot of people are missing out on the game, but also in the sense that if episode Intermission is intended to give us a glimpse of the future of the series on the PlayStation 5, it feels like there might be some missed opportunities there to really make the most of it, but we'll just have to wait and see. All in all, I really recommend episode Intermission. If not for the story, then at least for the stellar gameplay. I did enjoy the story personally quite a bit, but I do understand that there will be those that take issue with it, especially the post-credits scene. If you have a chance to play it, I really recommend doing so since it does offer a very solid experience that adds something to the overall experience of playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, both by introducing Yuffie and by giving us insight into what is happening in the Sector 7 slums while Cloud is busy killing flowers with his body. As far as intermissions go, in general, I think this one might be one of the best ones I've ever experienced, but in all fairness, intermissions aren't usually the best part of anything. Oh, and the Fort Condor minigame? It's alright, I guess. There's no triple triad, but it will have to do.
Thanks for watching. It's me, Peter, the Redbird, the mighty Phoenix, the devourer of death and retriever of life. All shall love me and despair. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more bird shenanigans. But until next time, bird sounds. Caca.